Welcome to another edition of the CS Podcast, where you can hear interviews with special guests such as
Dayon Buchanan, Tom Waddle, Pierre Desir, Brent Barry, Ed Werder,
and many others.
Too big, too strong, too fast, too good.
So be sure to subscribe and tune in to the CS Podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/ChristianRE722.
Did you not get the memo?
That's www.youtube.com/ChristianRE722 for great interviews. Be sure to check out the CS Podcast.
You are ridiculous.
Welcome to a special edition of the CS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt, and you guys can give me a follow on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. That's at ChrisShanafelt. You guys are probably wondering what's so special about today's show. Well, first things first, I'll be giving my thoughts on the 3-6 Chicago Bears, who are coming off of a 55-14 beatdown at Lambeau Field against the rival Green Bay Packers. And I won't be the only one sharing thoughts on the Bears. I'll also be joined by former NFL and CFL running back who spent 4 of his 5 years in the CFL with Mark Trestman. And I'll, of course, get his thoughts on how he thinks his former coach is doing here in the Windy City. Also, I asked him a question that all Bears fans are wondering, and that is, why isn't Trestman running the ball more? We have one of the top running backs in the NFL, and we aren't utilizing him. Why? Kerry definitely had an interesting answer to that one. You guys will definitely want to stick around for that. I'll also be joined by former NFL defensive back who spent a couple of years with the Chicago Bears, Ricky Manning. Ricky was a part of the 2006 Chicago Bears team that fell short to the Indianapolis Colts in the Super Bowl, but nonetheless, he knows what it's like to be a part of a great defense, and he tells us whether or not he sees any similarities in the 2006 Bears defense and the 2014 Bears defense. So let's go ahead and get started. The Chicago Bears are 3-6 on the season. The defense has allowed back-to-back 50-point games, and in the last 3 games, the Bears have allowed 133 points, which is the most ever allowed in a 3-game span in all of NFL history. With that being said, this defense was horrible last season, and I didn't think it could get any worse, but I was wrong. Mel Tucker should not be the defensive coordinator of this team anymore, and it sickens me when I hear Mark Trestman say that the Bears have an excellent coaching staff and that he feels very confident in Mel Tucker. What is there to feel confident about? You are 3-6, nothing is clicking, the offense is struggling, the defense is the worst in the NFL, and there's nothing special about our special teams. I think there's no doubt the Bears quit on Sunday against the Packers when they allowed Aaron Rodgers to throw for 6 touchdowns in the first half, and I think there's no doubt that the players have bought out of Mark Trestman and the coaching staff system, and it certainly doesn't help when the supposed leader of the defense, Lance Briggs, is acting the way he is. If you're unaware of how he's acting or what he's saying, I go more in depth and ask Kerry Carter and Ricky Manning about it, so you'll definitely want to find out in just a bit. Bottom line is, and I know it's not the Chicago Bears way, but I think the Bears need to fire Mark Trestman, and I wouldn't be too upset if they let go of general manager Phil Emery because he's affected this team as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at Phil Emery's first draft class as the general manager of the Chicago Bears. He took Shea McClellan in the first round, 20th overall. It's safe to say that he's been a bust and will not be on this team after this season once his contract is up. Emery took Alshon Jeffrey in the second round. Alshon looks like he'll be a good player for the Bears for a while. But after Jeffrey, you have Brandon Harden in the third round, Evan Rodriguez in the fifth round, Isaiah Fry in the sixth round, and Greg McCoy in the seventh. 3 of those 4 guys that were drafted after Alshon aren't even in the league anymore, and Fry is on the Lovie Smith Buccaneers. I will say that it looks like Emery has had some success in the last 2 NFL drafts, and he's been able to sign some guys in free agency like Lamar Houston and Willie Young, but he's also capable of signing a washed-up Jared Allen, who's been on milk cartons this season because he's yet to show up, and he's the one who signed Jay Cutler to a 7-year contract. So whatever happens with Emery, fine, but I think Mark Trestman and the coaches need to go unless somehow this team turns it around. It's going to be really tough, though. I personally don't see it happening. But anyways, that's my take on the season and what should happen. Once again, you guys could reach out to me and tweet me your thoughts on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. Now, without further ado, here's former NFL and CFL running back Kerry Carter. And we are back on the CS podcast. I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt, and it's a pleasure to welcome back former NFL and CFL running back Kerry Carter back to the show. Kerry, I appreciate you taking some time to join me. How's it going?
Oh, man, it's going great. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. So for those who don't know, Kerry, you went to Stanford University, and in 2003 you signed with the Seattle Seahawks as an undrafted free agent. You spent 2 seasons in Seattle, and you also spent a year with the Washington Redskins. In 2007 you signed with the Montreal Alouettes, who, if I'm not wrong, they drafted you back in the 2003 CFL draft, so they had your rights. And you went on to spend 5 seasons, with 4 of those 5 seasons under coach Mark Trestman, and you're of course part of those back-to-back 97th and 98th Grey Cup championship teams, which of course is equivalent to the Super Bowl in the NFL. So the main reason why I wanted to get you back onto the show, Kerry, was to talk about your former head coach, Mark Trestman, who's now the coach of the Chicago Bears. They're 3-6 on the season, and it seems like everybody in Chicago is calling for Mark Trestman's job. And to be honest, man, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't one of those guys. The team is just too talented to be 3-6 in my eyes, and it seems like he's lost the locker room. Now, of course, it's not all his fault, but what are your thoughts on the job that your former head coach, Mark Trestman, has done so far this season with the Chicago Bears?
Well, man, I'll tell you, Chris, I have nothing but the utmost love and respect for everything that Mark does and what he can do in terms of leading a group of motivated young men. And you know, you go into a situation like that, like I know people will always compare it to what Lovie Smith did and how the defense was under Lovie, and you know, it's a different team. It's a different team. They got to a point where they had some aging players. They parted ways with Urlacher and all these different things that kind of contributed to that. But in my eyes, you know, the defense definitely, you know, with Lance Briggs having to be kind of that leader. You know, Lance is a different personality, and I don't think he is, you know, the type of presence that you know, Brian is or was. He's a different kind of leader, and you know, I think as he goes, so that the defense, although there was no buy-in necessarily when Trestman arrived and really trying to push these guys to buy into his system and believe in his way of doing things. So I think that's the part I think most people are talking about, is him losing the locker room or not getting the right guys involved or on board to kind of pull the rest of the guys along. So I think it's a tough situation for him. And obviously I'm a huge fan of, you know, what he can do on offense and getting Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall, and you know, he has some talent on that side, Forte in the backfield, but for some reason they just haven't been able to keep it together, and the turnovers have hurt them, and penalties have hurt them, like all of these different things that contribute to, you know, to tough weeks in the NFL. You make mistakes, you lose games, so it's been a tough run.
Well, you mentioned that, you know, people are always going to compare Trestman to what Lovie Smith did, and in 2012, the Bears did fire Lovie Smith on Black Monday after a 10-6 record and just missing the playoffs, and they had a choice of hiring the reigning coach of the year in Bruce Arians, which I felt that would have been the better choice in the first place, and it certainly looks that way now, but instead they decided to hire Mark Trestman from the CFL, and I can't even lie to you, yeah, I was disappointed in the team's defense, but I was very surprised with how great this offense performed last season in the Bears' first year under Trestman. This year they brought back all 11 starters, and last season we've seen that they can all play at a very high level together. Why do you feel the offense is underperforming in the second year under Trestman?
Yeah, you know, that's always a tough one, because you normally see kind of a leap between, you know, year 1 and year 2 as guys get familiar with the offense, especially when you're, like you said, returning 11 starters. So, you know, I think it just comes down to game in and game out execution. You know, the flow of the game and how the defense is actually affecting the offense as well. So, you know, as long as they're getting possessions, they're getting touches, and they're able to convert on third downs, you look at those key areas, and honestly, I can't tell you that I know all of the stats for the Bears right now in
Chris Shanafelt talking with former NFL and CFL running back who spent 4 years with Mark Trestman in the CFL, Kerry Carter, here on the CS podcast. And Kerry, I'm glad I got you back on the show because not only have you spent a great amount of time under Mark Trestman, but you were one of his running backs. And a problem I'm having with the offense is, and it's one of the reasons why they're struggling, at least in my opinion, and that is they're not running the ball enough. When you have one of the top running backs in Matt Forte, I think you have to use them in any way, really. I mean, whether that's running the ball, whether that's shoving it out to him in the backfield with a pass or whatever. I mean, I just think they're underusing Matt Forte, and I find it unacceptable. Now I know the NFL and the CFL are totally different, and you guys were winning over there. But did you ever feel that Trestman got away from the running attack too early in any games?
You know what? I got a couple guys, one by the name of Avon Coburn, another guy, Avon came from the University of West Virginia, another guy, Brandon Whitaker from Baylor, both star running backs for us out there in Montreal, and I can tell you that they had a tough time with that as well, because it did tend to happen a little bit in terms of, not getting, they feel like they're getting the same commitment to the run that they would to the pass. But when they did get it, they were effective, and they were difference makers for us in that league and led us to championships. And I think that Trestman understands that. Honestly, I think that he wants to empower his quarterback and really lean on him. But you have to go with what your strengths are, and Matt Forte is one of the top flight running backs in the league, and he is a weapon. And I feel like when he's going, it helps the passing game because, the play action works, the getting out of the backfield works, if things aren't happening downfield, you can dump it off, and he's great after the catch, a great run after the catch guy, and he can do everything. So, as long as they're putting in an effort to try to get it to him, I think you'll see things improve that way. But yeah, when you get away from that, I think with any team that has an elite level running back, I mean, out here in Seattle, there was a lot of moaning and groaning when, Marshawn got 10 carries in a game and another game got 7 carries, and, it wasn't working for them on offense, so they went back to it. And last week set, team record for rushing and lead the NFL in rushing yards. So that commitment to the run when you have someone in that position is vital, and it's tough when you get away from that. So I hope that that's one of the things that they see, and they evaluate their film and they evaluate themselves as a coaching staff. So I'm sure that they can see some of those things happening, and we'll be able to adjust along the way.
Kerry, the quarterback of the Montreal Alouettes was Anthony Calvillo, who was in his late 30s, maybe even 40 years old when you guys won the 2 Grey Cups. And, of course, we know what Trestman has done with Bernie Kosar, Steve Young, and Rich Gannon. The Bears signed Jay Cutler to that 7-year contract just this past offseason. If the Bears decide to stick with Trestman after this season, can they win with Cutler at the helm? Will we add Cutler to that list of great quarterbacks that has had success under Trestman?
Well, I think it's, how he adjusts and finishes out this year will say a lot. Because, as a quarterback, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You gotta be the one that gets in there early, leaves late, puts in the extra effort, brings the guys together. If Jay's able to buy in and do those types of things, not just, now during the season, but in the off season, and really look at, okay, how can I critically evaluate myself and look at the little things that I need to do to help myself improve and help the offense improve and help the team improve. Then he has all the talent. He has all the talent. I think it comes down to a will and a want to and an attitude thing, which is huge for Mark. We always talked about checking your demeanor when you got into the facility and not letting it's almost compartmentalizing, not letting anything outside affect what's happening inside that locker room and on that field for you. So if he can get them to believe in that approach to things and get Jay to believe in that approach to things, I think
Chris Shanafelt talking with Kerry Carter here on the CS podcast. And Kerry, now obviously this isn't all on Mark Trestman and the struggling Bears offense, but this defense has just been embarrassing, especially because at least when I think of the history of the Chicago Bears, I think of the great defenses this franchise has always seemed to have with Dick Butkus, Richard Dent, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, and I could just go on and on. Did you ever think that you would hear the Chicago Bears, not the Oakland Raiders, not the Jacksonville Jaguars, but the Chicago Bears are the first team since the 1923 Rochester Jeffersons to allow back-to-back 50-point games?
It's a tough thing. It's a tough pill to swallow. You know, things change quickly though in the NFL. You know, I wouldn't expect that. You know, who is it right now? Detroit and Arizona. You know, at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't expect that game would be one of such magnitude going into a season, but. You know, things change. Cleveland, Miami. You know, so year to year in the NFL, that's one of the great things that people love is that there's parity and that there's an opportunity for every team every year to step up and make a difference. You would never expect that from a Bears team with a tradition that they have had. You would expect a down year now and then, but it's hard to see, you know, kind of how far they've fallen. And I don't know if it's just part of a cycle, like, you know, you go down that road and things are bad, and then instead of really trying to pull yourself back up, you know, the attitude kind of goes the other way. It's like, well, shoot, we're already this bad, you know, let's just regroup for next time. But I don't think that's the attitude that most guys have, not any of the, you know, professionals I've been around. So I know that there's pride in there, and guys want to do the right thing, they want to get better, and they want to show up, and you know, it's like investments, you know, past performance is not guaranteed future gains. So, you know, the tradition and everything is great, but, you know, these are new players, these are new coaches, it's a new team, a new attitude. So, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a tough pill to swallow. And like I said earlier, it almost seems like Trestman and the coaches have lost the locker room. I don't think, personally, I don't think there's any doubt that the Bears team quit last week in their blowout loss to the division rival Green Bay Packers. It's very tough to say that, but I don't think there's any doubt that they quit. I mean, that was an embarrassing performance. And I got to say, I think it's a joke that a proven veteran and a supposed leader, like you mentioned earlier on the defense, Lance Briggs, comes out and he says, quote, "Sometimes I'm sitting in meetings while coach is talking, and sometimes the words just kind of phase out, and I'm staring at the screen. The only thing I could tell is the time. I can see the time. It's like, damn, 55 minutes left." Now, Kerry, with a statement like that, does that say more about Briggs or the coaching staff? And what are your thoughts about those comments?
And you know, I know Lance, and I know how much of a competitor he is, and you know how much football means to him. So it's kind of a shocking thing to hear him say something like that. But he's somebody that's always going to speak his mind and be truthful and honest about it. So you have to respect that. You know, as far as who it really represents, you know, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, it's kind of going back to the point I made about the way that Trestman approaches things. I can honestly tell you when he first got into Montreal, it wasn't just an easy transition that everyone bought into right away, and you know, and it was all like, you know, roses and all of that. But I think because of his style, and he's you know, very detail oriented, but he looks at things in a very different way, and your approach and his ideas on how you should envision the day. And you know, he always used to say that not everybody get it, so the ones that do have to bring the other ones along. But the thing is, if you don't have enough people that get it and that are bringing the others along, that means a lot of people are falling behind. You know, so that approach isn't always going to work everywhere. You know, there's certain programs that it will probably work better with, and I can kind of equate it to you know, my days at Stanford, and once I, you know, going into my last year, John Willingham, you know, went to Notre Dame. We got another coach in by the name of Buddy Teven,
It does, man. It does. It sounds like only time will tell. And Kerry, that's actually all I have for you, man. Hopefully, Trestman and the Bears turn this thing around. It's tough out here in Chicago right now, man. I mean, the weather's getting colder. The Bears aren't performing well. D Rose is already having problems on the basketball court. It's tough out here, man.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that, man. But it's the NFL. Anything can happen at any point, and I'm a big fan of Coach Trestman and what he's done, in the past, but also just what he's done for me as a man. I've had lots of great conversations with him. I got to sit with him when he was out here, in the preseason and just catch up and everything. So I'm happy that he has this opportunity, and I hope that for his sake as well, that they can turn this thing around, because I want to see him be successful and have a long tenure here in the NFL, and hopefully it is with Chicago. I hope that they come back on board and they start doing the right things and getting the success that they're hoping for, so that they will be moving things forward and then finish the year off right. I think that's the biggest thing, is having the pride to finish this year off the right way.
Hey, man, I certainly hope you're right. Once again, Kerry, I appreciate you joining the show. It's always great talking to you, man. It's been a while, but it's always great chatting. You have anything else before I let you go?
No, that's it, man. I'm excited and everything about the rest of the NFL season. My fantasy team's not doing anything great, but I'm still excited.
You're not the only one, Kerry. Once again, thanks so much, and best of luck tonight, all right, man?
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Kerry had a lot of interesting things to say, and it seems like he's positive and optimistic that Trestman will be able to turn things around, but in order to do that, Cutler needs to step up and stop committing the inexcusable turnovers, which I'm just not sure is going to happen. He's confident that he can fit the ball anywhere, and there's times where he just needs to know that throwing the ball away is okay. It's better than turning the ball over, and I'm just not sure if you can fix a guy seeing that he's been like this his whole career. This is a guy that's been in the NFL for 9 seasons. He's not a rookie or a guy that's been in the league for 2 or 3 years. He is what he is. He's not going to be a 40 touchdowns to 12 interceptions type guy. If he's ever going to throw 40 touchdowns, he'll probably have 20 or so interceptions as well. Anyways, up next we have former Chicago Bears defensive back Ricky Manning. Here we are with another interview on the CS podcast. I'm your host, Chris Shanafelt, and I'm now joined by former NFL defensive back who spent the majority of his career with the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears, and is now the coach of the secondary and special teams over at Fresno City College. He is Ricky Manning Jr. It's great to have you back on the show, Ricky. How is everything?
Everything's great, man. Can't complain, man. Just blessed.
I hear you, man. I certainly can't complain myself, but I gotta say it's been rough out here in Chicago. I mean, the weather's changing, it's getting colder, and the Bears are not playing well at all. They're 3-6 on the season. They're coming off of allowing back-to-back 50-point games, the first time to do so since the 1923 Rochester Jeffersons, who I've never even heard of. They've allowed 133 points in their last 3 games, which is the most in a 3-game span ever in NFL history. As a former NFL defender and as a former member of this team, we know that the Chicago Bears franchise is famous for their history of great defenses. I got to think that you've been sick to your stomach watching this team over the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for the team. They're playing way below expectations, and it's never a good feeling. But what sticking thing positive about the situation is, at least it's not expected. Where it comes bad is when you expect to be beaten like that. No one's talking about the Raiders being 0-8 or whatever they are as a surprise. They don't expect to be that much greater than they are. But in Chicago and the Bears defense and the team period, people expect them to be better. So that's a good thing behind it. The bad thing is we're playing below our expectations.
Now, some had some very high expectations. I thought they would at least make a playoff appearance. Some people were thinking Super Bowl. And last year, this defense struggled last season as well. This season, it's been the same struggle. Now, you never want to hear about anybody getting fired, but are you surprised, like many of us, that Mel Tucker still has a job at defensive coordinator for the Bears?
You know what? You never know how things are going to play out, especially being a new staff there, over the last couple of years. They probably give them a little bit of time. I'm not sure sure how those things play out. Not sure the reasons why they're losing. Haven't critiqued them as well. But it just, it's just an unfortunate thing, especially with the lineup. With guys like Cutler and Marshall and just all those powerhouses on offense. This team deserves to win, or should be winning.
Ricky, you were a part of that 2006 Chicago Bears defense that carried the team to the Super Bowl. What was it about that defense that made you guys great and make the big plays at the right time? And do you see any of those traits in the 2014 Chicago Bears defense?
Well, one, we had the guys. We had future Hall of Fame guys on there, and Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs and Charles Tillman, in their prime, in their good years. So that was a huge difference. And, he still has Lance Briggs and Peanut, but, Peanut's been suffering injuries. He's not there this year because he went down again. So, that takes a toll on the team with those guys. Not to mention Mike Brown, too, as well. Another staple guy in Chicago Bears defense history, at the time. So, we just had we had the guys. And it was our time, a little bit of luck, going there. Devin Hester returned all those kicks that year. We had the ingredients for a Super Bowl contender, definitely. And I'm not sure if they have all those pieces in place, and they're not getting the kind of luck added on top of it that it takes for a team to go that far.
Chris Shanafelt talking with former defensive back Ricky Manning here on the CS Podcast. And Ricky, your former teammate, and you mentioned him, your former teammate and Pro Bowl linebacker Lance Briggs came out last week and said, quote, "Sometimes I'm just sitting in meetings while the coach is talking, and sometimes the words just kind of phase out, and I'm just staring at the screen. The only thing I can tell is the time. I can see the time, and it's like, damn, 55 minutes left." What are your thoughts when you hear comments like that come from Lance Briggs? And does it sound like he's bought out or is done with this team?
Well, when you're this far in your career and when your team is losing this bad, everything is highly criticized, and sometimes you make mistakes and say things that you probably shouldn't say. And he's probably being honest. But anybody knows Lance knows he's a focused individual. Some guys don't zone in completely in meetings. I remember when I was at Carolina the year with the Super Bowl, Chris Jenkins, he had like a sleep however you say the word, a sleeping disorder. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to pronounce the word, but he would be straight asleep in all our meetings, and he couldn't do anything about it. That didn't change what he did on Sunday. There are other ways you prepare during practice. Not saying Lance Briggs sleeps in meetings and not focused, but some guys prepare in a different way. Everybody's not Peyton Manning. They watch every game the team's ever played, and be that much prepared. Everybody's not that blessed to be like that. But, I'm pretty sure Lance is in tune. I don't think he's giving up. But it gets frustrating, man, this time. It's like whatever you do, you can't seem to figure it out as a team.
Absolutely. Now, Ricky, you also mentioned Peanut Tillman. He went down week 2 against the San Francisco 49ers, and since then, rookie first-round pick Kyle Fuller has had to step in, and he stepped up big time, being one of the top defensive rookies in the league, although he struggled lately, but who on the Bears hasn't? Are you a fan of what the Chicago Bears have in this kid?
You know what? To be quite honest, I haven't seen enough, or I haven't seen him as much. The couple games I've caught, I haven't really had a chance to sit down and critique the team, the defense, quite yet. But so I really can't comment on the kid. I have to take a little bit closer look on him. But I'm pretty sure they got some guys in there that can get the job done. But right now, they're not getting the job done. And even the veteran guys like Jennings, I haven't had a chance to see him either. But the Green Bay game, giving up touchdowns, I know a lot of it is miscommunication more than guys getting beat one-on-one. It's more of not being on the same page as the secondary. So, and that's just from the last game that I've seen, the Green Bay game. So, I'm pretty sure those guys have to just find a way to get it together, man, and end the season better than it's been going.
Just a couple more questions before I let you go, Ricky. As always, I really do appreciate your time. Once again, this is former NFL defensive back Ricky Manning joining the CS podcast and talking a little bit about the offensive side of the ball. Last season, the offense played great. They were ranked the second best offense in the NFL. They have arguably the best weapons surrounding any quarterback in the NFL. Now they brought back all 11 offensive starters, including Jay Cutler, who signed that 7-year deal in the offseason. This year, the offense hasn't been nearly as successful as it was last season. Jay Cutler has had 15 total turnovers, 10 of them being interceptions and 5 being fumbles, which leads me to my next question. That is, did the Bears make a mistake by handing Cutler that big contract, and can they win with him at quarterback?
You know what? I don't know if they made a mistake or not. Jay Cutler is right now, and he would be the first to admit, is playing under his expectations, his own expectations, and definitely under the expectations of all the Chicago Bear fans. And he knows that. Hence the record for the team. Hence the turnovers. He has to play better. In order for this team to win, he has to play better. And if he doesn't, I think they have no choice but to replace him. And shake things up and maybe get somebody in there that can live up to the expectations and beyond. Because right now he's not doing. He's not leading his team. In that position as a quarterback, you either take credit for the wins or you take credit for the losses. And unfortunately, right now he has to take credit for the losses. And he'll be the first to put it all on himself. He has publicly. So I think that he has to make a change. He has to take care of the ball better. He has to find a way to get this team wins as a team. So, if he doesn't, then, I think the Bears have to move on.
Finish this sentence for me, Ricky. The Chicago Bears will finish this season with a final record of... What's their record now?
3-6.
3-6.
I say...
They got Minnesota this. They got Minnesota this Sunday. You say 8-8?
I say 8-8. I said they finished 500, lick their wounds, and go back to the drawing board and figure things out.
All right. Hey, I hope you're right about that. I mean, if they go 8-8, it sounds like they're starting to turn things around. And a final question for you, and I know you said you haven't watched too much about the Chicago Bears, so feel free not to answer this if you don't feel comfortable. But do you feel that Mark Trestman has lost the locker room?
I have no clue. I honestly have no clue, and it's hard to have a clue. And people have opinions, but only people that really know that are those guys inside those walls. You can have an outside opinion, but if you're not in there on the team, on the administration, don't know what's going on day to day in the meetings, it's hard to say that. It's hard to say that. So hopefully he hasn't. It's going to be hard for the team. It's hard to get guys to believe on you when things are going this way. So hopefully, God willing, give him the wisdom and right words to say to keep that team focused and keep their belief in him and what they're doing, and they can finish the season strong because they can do it. They can do it.
Hey man, they have the talent. They definitely have the talent.
They definitely do. They can do it, and hopefully, pray for them. They will.
Well, hopefully you're right. I mean, I think it'd almost sound like as sad as it sounds, I think it'll make Bears fans happy if they finish 8-8. And I know that doesn't sound too great, but I think Bears fans will be happy with an 8-8 record. That means they finish 500, and they only lose 2 more games this season. So I'm sure Bears fans will be happy with that. I know I will be. And Ricky, I appreciate you taking some time to join the show. It's always fun chatting with you. Is there anything else you have for us before I let you go?
That's it, man. Hopefully they finish 8-8. If they don't, then hey, we gotta see what happens. Go back to the drawing board, but don't lose faith. Bear fans, keep believing in your team. Win or lose. It takes a community to make a team better. It's just the guys on the field, uniforms.
Absolutely, Ricky. Once again, thank you so much, and hopefully we can do this again down the line. All right, man.
All right, thanks, sir.
All right, take care.
All right.
There he goes. That's former Chicago Bears defensive back Ricky Manning, and he's much more optimistic and has a lot more faith than most Chicago Bears fans as he sees the team finishing the season 5-2 with a final record of 8-8. Although I'm not too confident, it's definitely nice to hear that. Now, both Kerry and Ricky commented on the Lance Briggs comments that I mentioned at the top of the show, and I think that they were both a little surprised with Briggs' comments. And as two guys who spent time in the league, what I took from it is that Briggs is a Pro Bowl veteran. He's been with the Bears his whole career and has a fair share of wins and losses, that's for sure. And right now the Bears are 3-6. Nothing is clicking with the team, and it's his last year under contract. He also said last week that chances are this is his last year on the Chicago Bears, so he's disappointed that his Bears career will end this way. You know, it looks like they're going to be ending with a losing record. That's kind of how I see it. That's how I took their comments. Ricky was dead on. I mean, you cannot be upset that Lance Briggs is honest, and when he talks to the media, he does a pretty good job about being honest, but it sucks that it seems like his Bears career will end on bad terms with the organization and some fans. That's how I see it. Of course, as we know, Brian Urlacher, his career ended on bad terms, it seems like, with the organization. But anyways, that'll do it for today's show. Hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to check out all my past shows and interviews on YouTube at youtube.com/ChristianRE722. That's youtube.com/ChristianRE722. And follow me on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. Hope you all enjoyed. Until next time, take care.